Can you hear me?
Morning.
Yes? Great. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming to the best breakout room at FinOps X, right? So I can tell you that our intuition was actually to speak about how to do usage optimization. But at some point, as we were having conversations, we realized that it's not only important to do usage optimization, it's also very important and actually very challenging to make it something executives and board cares about. And for us, it's just as important, and we decided this is an overlooked topic which we should definitely focus on, and that's why we're here today. So here with me, Thomas, leading product operations for FinOps at Nubank, and I'm the CEO of PointFive. We'll start with some background about Nubank, so you all know what an amazing company Nubank is, and then we can start talking about how to make usage optimization a boardroom topic.
Right, so good morning, everyone. I'm Thomas from Nubank, Latin America's largest retail bank, and I saw a lot of you are here today for the first time at FinOps X. I was this person 2 years ago. There was a big party on the aircraft carrier, which was awesome, by the way. And no one at that time had heard of Nubank outside of Brazil and maybe some parts of Mexico. And I was a little bit lost there. Like, no one knew me, everyone looked a little bit skeptical, but I met this guy, and he, over the years, he has become one of my favorite partners to like change ideas and feel the value that you get from this conference of connecting with other people. So it's awesome that today from the aircraft carrier, from like, getting my feet wet in this FinOps space to now being on stage together with him. So let's talk a little bit about Nubank here. We're Latin America's largest retail bank with around 131 million customers spread across 3 geographies, Brazil, Mexico, and Colombia. And if you look at these markets, you will notice that a lot of them are catering to lower income customers. And Nubank especially grew on the use case of catering to previously unbanked customers. So you can imagine that even though those customer numbers are pretty large, the revenue stream from each customer in itself is lower than when you compare especially the incumbent banks in Brazil, who used to make a living of more, or still making a living of more affluent customers. So what does that mean for us and for our FinOps practice? Well, it means that cost efficiency isn't just something that's nice to have, it's something that basically fuels our entire business. So when I'm talking about our FinOps practice, we're not at zero. When we started on this journey as a cloud native bank, almost 5 years ago, everyone treated the cloud as if it was free. But then as we scaled and had an IPO and became bigger and now want to go to the United States, everyone became more excited about cost efficiency. So we've shifted priorities, and now we've become a really big FinOps team. We're 14 people, full-time dedicated, pretty sophisticated with cost transparency, chargeback, budget tracking, forecasting accuracy, specific unit economics. Last year, I was standing here talking about how we identified specific demand drivers per business unit and use it for our forecasting models. So we are already a pretty advanced practice, but at the same time, we still had some difficulties in penetrating every single part of the organization.
And basically, when we think about earning leadership attention, when I was a small kid, I've been taught that it's not enough to do the work, you have to make sure people pay attention. And I'm sure many of us in the audience learned these lessons at some point in their life. I think in FinOps, it's even more important, because FinOps is a lot about driving decisions by management, by executives, about the business. So earning attention is not a nice to have, it's not just about being acknowledged, it's really about doing your job and making sure the organization is making the right and informed decisions. And what we're going to do right now is unfold how you make it happen, how you move from creating reports to actually make FinOps something, and usage optimization specific, something that executives care and they talk about, and we'll do it through the amazing, I would even say incredible, Nubank case study.
Right, so show of hands here, who of you, or the team of you, is either under the CTO or the CFO? Got to be almost everyone, because when you look at the top level for cloud cost, the bill usually has one or the other owner. Either it's with finance, which is much better at telling the unit price story. They negotiate the rate cards with your vendors. They usually own the commitments and the coverage, and they translate the cost or the spending into leadership language. That's the first option. Or the second option is you're under the CTO. It's an engineering question. You're very good at technical decision making, what gets provisioned, who owns the architecture and the configuration, and who translates spend into engineering and then ultimately buying decision. So you're either with one of the two. So when there's a cost spike, the eternal question that you will have to answer is that a usage problem or is it a unit price problem? And then who do I talk to? But I think one of the critical underpinning of the FinOps practice is that the cloud should deliver value. So looking at this from either an engineering standpoint or a finance standpoint kind of misses the entire story about that the business is actually the ones who's benefiting from the entire cost that's spent on the cloud. So the bill itself actually has more than those two parts that are usually the primary owners of cloud cost. The first one, okay, price. That's what I said before. It's usually with finance. It's the rate cards. It's the commitments. Or if you want to go one step further, a good KPI that we use at Nubank is the effective savings rate. It's basically what you save versus the on-paper market price. But then if you go to usage below, not all usage is created equal. There are two drivers for usage. One is the business. Who is going to complain if your cloud cost doubles, but you support 10x the transactions? Who is going to complain if your cloud cost goes up, but you have an incredible amount of additional fraud cases? All of this is business driven, and the increase in cloud spend actually supports business growth. So that's the business driven usage that's usually tied also to unit economics. And then there's the third part, the second part of the usage conversation, that's the efficiency-driven usage, and this is where PointFive lives.
Correct. We really focus on how you map where you're running inefficiently with your infrastructure. Anything from configurations, misusage of the resources for the use case, or misarchitecture that create excessive costs. And we'll now dive exactly into how you do that and make that something that executives care about. But a quick philosophical comment before we continue. So you can click, please, Thomas. Alon, for many of you, it's the first time you're at FinOps X. The one thing you're going to hear multiple times is that FinOps is about driving value, not reducing cost. And you've probably seen it multiple times on LinkedIn and in many other forums. For me, you cannot stay only on that. It's very important to put emphasis on optimization as well. Why? Because that's what management and executive expect you to do. It's 100% accurate. It's okay that the bill goes up if business go up accordingly. But management expect you to make sure you don't waste money for no good reason and to help moderate the bill, even if it goes up. So that is something that you should never forget. Yes, show the business value. And sure, there is business value from the tech investment that you do as a company, but also make sure that you do this ongoing optimization, and also, and we'll talk about it right now, also communicate it to management and make it something they care about and talk about.
Right, so now your question might be, all right, now you showed me the three levers of cloud cost. Where do the biggest opportunities actually live? Well, in my experience, or in our experience at Nubank, they live in two places. They live at the interface of price and usage. So there are certain pricing decisions, commitments decisions that will need usage forecasts and vice versa. And most programs will miss them because the finance department doesn't sufficiently talk to the business or the technology decision makers. And then the second one is deep inefficiency-driven usage. So it's the kind of waste that lies below the surface in configuration drift, in cross-service patterns, or in data platform behavior. And most tools can't reach it. And we also couldn't reach it. But we'll show you on the next slide how we actually tackled this issue.
If I ask you, guys, what is waste? I'm assuming your immediate intuition would be to say idle resources running in my environment or underutilized resources running in my environment, mostly compute. The reality is that today, most of the opportunities lies in the deeper levels of waste. And the potential to create a big impact is dependent on really getting deep into these deeper layers and figure out what are they and how I can optimize them. So we have the obvious waste, which is the idle resources, the underutilized resources, but then you have configurations and lifecycle drifts. Very often with storage, for example, you have opportunities to create configurations, to pay more on storage or pay more on read and write operations, for example. This is configuration that have massive effect on the cost at the end. Or creating life cycles to move between different tiers within storage. Tons of opportunities there. And then there is what we call application-driven waste, meaning the person who architected the application did it in a way that created a lot of spend that is unnecessary. He's querying the database every minute instead once an hour. You shouldn't do that. That happens a lot also with Snowflake, Databricks, all the data platforms. We see it a lot all the time. Non-stop querying for no good reason. Or application that's sending a request without the need, and you pay for data transfer. And the hardest one to figure out and also action upon are the architectural inefficiencies. Architecture that create, for example, unnecessary data transfer costs. So what if you put your compute instance, your VM, in a certain region, and the storage instance in a different region, and you pay for data transfer across regions? That is a problematic architecture decision that create excessive data transfer costs for no good reason. And what we see today is that most of the opportunities are in the bottom 3 layers. The obvious waste is mostly tackled in most organizations. And now the challenge to actually drive value, and again, through optimization, not only ensuring that you have good unit economics, is depend on getting deep into these layers and start taking action.
So when we looked at our opportunities in our PointFive platform, or it can be any platform really, there were 2 different ways that or 2 different types of opportunities that we saw. Ones, and those are at the top, are the big ones. They are like high in value, and they are the ones who are the more obvious ones to tackle. But there's another path that holds value, and I want to present it first because our case study will later focus on these cases. So there's going to be hundreds, thousands of opportunities within these same opportunity types, and every single one is going to be relatively insignificant for whoever is the owner, if you can even find one. Great. So now you have the problem. Are you going to go to your engineer and ask him to fix a ticket that's going to save you $10 per month? Probably not. So what we found is that we have to look at these relatively small opportunity types in an aggregate level, because that's what makes them relevant. If you have 3,000 tables, and each one of them is worth $10, the savings volume of the total initiative or the total opportunity becomes relevant. But you're not going to ask the individual owner to fix it. You're going to ask your central platform team to fix it, because likely the fix is going to be the same for every single table. If you can automate this, you only need to build the automation once, and you have a repeated savings opportunity. Second one, what I said in the beginning, if it's concentrated onto the big opportunities, is usually the easier to tackle if you don't have widespread support of your FinOps practice in the organization, because you just need to go to one single business unit and can tell them directly, hey, look, if you tackle those 5 or 10 opportunities, you're going to save X% of your bill. The discussion becomes a little bit easier, but both ways are incredibly valid. And we actually, I brought today 3 examples, 3 cases where we did the A path, which is a bunch of small opportunities, all too small to tackle for the individual owner. So what we did is on the first one is DynamoDB storage class optimization. It's about shifting tables from standard to infrequent access and back based on the actual access patterns. And that works bidirectional because access patterns can change, and then the other storage type becomes economically more attractive. And PointFive kept showing us these opportunities. So what started out as an exercise from our central platform team to start deleting or changing those tables one by one was a good use case or a good test case for the scaling solution, which was integrating a custom pipeline based on PointFive's GraphQL API. So this automation itself helped us to optimize 3,000 individual tables, all of them small, but if you aggregate them, that one opportunity type alone in one AWS service, DynamoDB, saved an entire 1% of our total cloud spend. That's pretty impressive for one single opportunity type. It also reduced the time to resolution, 72%. That's a metric that I'm going to stress later on as well. And it impacted 92% of our business units. Now imagine if I would have to go to 92% of our GMs and be like, hey, please change the DynamoDB storage class, and then you have to do it again when the access pattern changes, and it's going to save you $10,000 per month. They're all going to look at me like, yeah, that's why we're not going to do it. But then when we automated it at scale, it became relevant in aggregate. Second one is DynamoDB lifecycle management. It's the same logic. Tables that didn't have read or write activity over a certain time or a certain time threshold. The platform surfaced them. I mean, we're a bank, so of course it needs to be validated against retention rules. We can't just walk around and delete client data that's potentially relevant to Bacen, which is our regulator in Brazil. So we can't just go around and delete tables automatically. But then we did build an automation that requires minimal intervention from the respective owners, if we can identify them, on an opt-in or on an opt-out basis. So the owner has to actively say, please don't delete my table. That already turns around the whole responsibility question. And that led us to a total of 0.1% of total cloud spend saved. Now 0.1% looks less than 1%, but at the scale of Nubank's cost, this translates to thousands and thousands of dollars saved. Again, 72% of reduction in time to resolution and 88% of impacted teams that didn't have to lift a finger because the central platform team took care of the automation and deleted or changed the storage class automatically. And then the last one is unattached and inactive EBS cleanups. It's probably a classic here for everyone. Volumes that are no longer detached to an instance and don't have a recent reattachment are checked against ownership tags. If they inherited the tag from the EC2 instance sitting on top of them, fine. If not, the rest remain untagged. They were deleted as well by the automation from PointFive. And then we built an internal cleanup bot that's working every 15 days to clean up all these unattached EBS volumes for another 0.2% of total cloud spend saved. So if you just make the math on those 3 opportunity types, it's 1.3% saved. Action done by one single platform team affecting almost the entire bank is pretty impressive. And then I stressed this last metric here, reduction in time to resolution. I had to learn this also. Our CTO told me that it's like one of the key metrics for that he was tracking is like how long is the opportunity sitting there? And for this EBS case, let me go back here, we had the average time the average lifetime of an unattached EBS volume was 210 days. That's 7 months. If you can break this down to 2 weeks, that's such an easy win to communicate to your CTO and makes you as a FinOps practice look pretty good.
Yeah, and if I may add on this point, just to materialize it, think about an EBS volume that costs you $5,000 a month. In the end of the year, you report about the fact that you cleaned it up. There is a massive difference if you did it in January or December. There is a massive difference. It's a $60K difference. So showing how much time actually cuts, time to resolution, time to take action, have massive impact on the bottom line as well. And that's an amazing sign of a mature practice to do usage optimization. Something that is also very important, credibility. That's absolutely massive for usage optimization. Credibility is important. One, the findings, it's important that they will be credible so you can run automation and have the confidence it's not going to break anything. But also, the amount that you saved with usage optimization also has to be very accurate. Because when you give estimates, they will automatically be discounted. If you go in front of management and say, oh, we saved more or less 500K this year. More or less? What does that mean? Automatically, the person listening to you is thinking, oh, maybe it's 200,000, maybe it's 300,000. It's automatically being discounted. So getting the numbers right is absolutely crucial. People will give you 2x more credit if you give something that is accurate. And if you're just saying, OK, it's more or less, it's a problem. You have to look historically how this resource or service behaved, and based on that, do the extrapolation. And when you do the math, you have to take all the metrics into consideration. Commitments, discounts, everything, change in rates, everything. And it is absolutely crucial as part of your program to have this calculation accurate. When you get in front of the executive or management, you can say, listen, this is the exact number that we saved this year, and I'm 100% confident that that was the impact we were able to achieve.
Yeah, that was one of the single biggest shifts for us at Nubank as well. When the moment you don't have to defend models or estimations anymore, but you can show actual numbers, that just changes the tone of the conversation entirely. Doesn't matter if you talk to your CFO, your CEO, your CTO, whoever else is coming to you to talk about cloud costs. So
and Thomas, fun fact, if I may, I'm sorry. Fun fact, at PointFive, we have a research team that maps all these inefficiencies, create algorithms for detection. Do you know how much time they spend on creating the logic versus creating the formula to calculate how much was actually saved? It's 50-50. 50% of the time goes on actually creating the logic, 50% on creating of the detection, 50% on the formula to calculate the actual saving. This is how much it is actually important.
So I brought 3 metrics here because I showed you 3 levers in the beginning, right? So I wanted to make sure that I connect those levers to some metrics. So first one is, if the CFO is coming to me, probably the first question he's going to ask is, well, how much did it save? So so PointFive, or the opportunities that we tackled based on PointFive, be it via aggregation of small opportunities or just by tackling the biggest ones from top down, saved us 8 to 12% of our cloud spend. And I know I said before, I don't want to show estimations, but our cloud spend over the time of the engagement moved. So depending on what anchor you make, it's 8 to 12%. Second one is if the CTO comes and like, okay, how did my engineering efficiency go up? I'm going to tell them, all right, so now you have this resolution time. It went down from 210 days to 16 days. I mean, it's an example for the EBS one, but I could tell the story on basically every opportunity type. And then the last one is if the business is coming to me, if they don't ask a question about the bill, the question they're going to ask is, well, did it affect any of my engineers? And if you can tell them, no, it didn't, the central platform team did all the work, they'll be like, great, so my team can focus on products. So now you brought a metric, and I can tell this to 92% of our business units. So now you have a metric that resonates with almost everyone that's in your entire boardroom. And so that's the part that matters most to me. You can show numbers, You have a shared language. You show the same problem to all your parts of your organization, but with a different cut of the numbers, with different teams who can act on it. You create real partnership, so all the findings come with context, they come with the technical risk assessment, and they most of all come with business value. So you're not just throwing tickets over the fence anymore to engineering to please, please, please solve them. You actually can connect to real business impact of the ask that you're having. And then the third one, if you sometimes look at these opportunities and you feel overwhelmed because there are so many and they're all so small, this compounding factor cannot be stressed enough. If you can aggregate repetitive remediation automations into a single solution, they become automated patterns, and that frees up the team to tackle then the next layer of efficiency.
And a bit about the tooling that should support something like that. And what you can see here is how we operate at PointFive, but I'm not interested right now in how PointFive operates, but what you need to make sure you have in place for tooling to support everything that Thomas just described. And the first one, we call it Infra Fabric, but the idea is to have in place not only the billing data, but also all the utilization and architecture metrics as well. So you have to merit billing, but also all the technical aspects of your infrastructure, utilization rates, resource discovery, connection between resources, and it all exists within your cloud or data platform providers, but you need to bring them all together. If you only pull billing data, you will only scratch the surface. Number two, get really deep with the detection. So us in PointFive, we have a research team. This is what they do. They map this out, create detection algorithm, but it has to be research-driven. If you'll take an agent and tell them, hey, find waste, again, it will only scratch the surface. Believe me, I tried it multiple times. So you have to get really deep and be driven by cloud and AI researchers. Number three, today we're in a place where remediation can actually be automated. So Thomas shared a few bots and automations they developed in-house. Today, this stuff can be much easier done with agents as well. But if you get confidence and credibility in the findings, that means you can also start automated in scale. Start with pre-prod environments, dev, QA, see that it's working, and continue from there automating more and more. And the last part, which is too often overlooked, and that's the reason we did this session, verified ROI. Make sure you have the numbers, the accurate numbers that you trust to report on everything you've done. And that should be an integral part of the process, taking into account historical data, taking into account discounts, any type of commitments that create lower rate, and come with exact numbers to report to management. Numbers on how much I saved, how fast they did it in comparison to before I started this program. And again, the ownership piece, which Thomas described so nicely. And obviously, it's not only for cloud, AI and LLM, data platform, Snowflake, Databricks. It all applies the same way. Another click. One more thing. PointFive made a big change, by the way, this week. And I believe this is how things should be handled moving forward. I'm not going to get into the details, but you should be able to ask questions about usage optimization and the outcomes with a natural language. You should have agents, as I said, that solve these problems in large scale. And you should have the ability to build applications to visualize the status and also take action and click of a button, all with prompts that deliver this stuff. And that is the modern way to do this stuff. Maybe next year, Thomas, we can talk about leveraging this for usage optimization.
Right. It took us 30 minutes to talk about AI in this talk. All right, so 3 things to take back. First, separate financial engineering from usage optimization, okay? All these conversations, they need to have they need to have a clear owner. There's a financial lever, there's a business lever, and there's an engineering lever. They all need to talk to each other, but they all have a specific owner. Second is depth of detection sets the ceiling on what leadership will pay attention to. And that also connects to the KPIs that I showed. The more detailed KPIs you can show, and more specific KPIs you can show to whoever is your audience will make your FinOps practice more relevant. And then lastly, and I cannot stress that enough, verified savings over estimates are what turns FinOps into a boardroom conversation, because it just allows everyone to prioritize based on actual numbers instead of just estimations. So that's it from us here for now. We're happy now to take your questions, and thank you all for your attention so far.
This is a throwable microphone, and I do not play sports. So whoever has the first question, all the way in the back, I'm going to chuck it at you. If it hits you in the head, you'll be fine, probably. And now you have to get it around the room next.
What a
Yes,
throw.
thank you.
I know thanks for the presentation. I know we didn't really touch on AI costs and tokenization as well, but given the third point of verified savings and verified costs, given that is right now a boardroom conversation on AI, how do you envision, or how are you thinking about tracking those costs and managing them?
That's a great question. I want to explain why it is a good question, okay? I will give you an example. For example, we help companies also save on input tokens based on reducing the size of the prompt and the context being sent to LM services. Now, this optimization has a compounding effect, okay? Why? If I now cut the prompt in half and I send to the LM service, it now puts that in its cache. And the next cycle, the next prompt I will send, I will waste less tokens because the cache is also smaller now. So every optimization you do with prompts, there is a compounding effect. So there isn't a straightforward ability to measure savings with AI services. What is doable, and that's what we do, by the way, at PointFive, is to create benchmarks. Meaning, do research on, for a prompt from type, I don't know, engineer is giving instructions to build initial application, okay, whatever. From that type, if I cut half of the input tokens, how is it going to affect later on interaction with the LM service, okay? You can start creating benchmarks. So when we give the calculations there, it's basically based, okay, we've tested thousands of similar optimizations. That was the impact that was created. And based on that, we can tell you, you're right, it's not accurate to the dollar, but similar actions like that created this amount of savings.
Next question, put your hand up and you get a microphone thrown at your face. Folks, you might be looking at your agenda thinking, oh, it's almost lunchtime, but we run a tight ship and lunch is not served until 12:15. So we have 10 more minutes for Q&A, don't be shy. That was a really good throw.
Amazing basketball players here.
Hi, Thomas. I was just wondering, are you using the agentic functionality for remediation at Nubank today?
We're starting to use it. Like for those use cases that I showed, we built our own pipeline. But yeah, obviously this is, as our efficiency targets also move up, we're going to look into those, yes.
Right, because a problem that I have is working in a financial organization. When I say, I want an agent and it's going to access all our accounts and it's going to have license to remediate things, suddenly the security team gets very anxious. How do you handle that kind of situation, in the application?
I will explain. I don't think it's a black or white. I don't think it's 0 or 1 problem. Okay? It's not either give agent the task and give them full permissions to make the optimization, or do everything manual. Okay? First of all, there are areas that you need to map where it can be fully automated. What we see, by the way, is that enterprise only do it in dev environment. That's it. I haven't seen anyone doing it in production. If there is someone here, big enterprise doing production, I would love to hear. But that's it. So where are the areas in your infrastructure that you feel comfortable giving something like that to an agent? Okay? In production, it's typically leveraging agents to streamline the process, scale the process, versus execute end-to-end. An example, I now give my agent the task to, every day, take all the new optimization opportunities, find the relevant owner, send him a Slack message with the details, the evidence, the context, getting from him, thank you, getting from him approval that it's valid, and then send him a prompt that he can put in his Claude code or Cursor, whatever he's using, to make the change on the inference code level. But then he needs to run it with Claude or Cursor to actually execute it. So this is a great example of how I can leverage agents to scale the process, but still avoid the risk of giving access or right access to my agents to do it by themselves.
I want to comment on that from our experience. So the examples that I showed, they are like an agent light, right? Like it's not AI based, but it's automated. So it looks like an agent and it works like an agent, but it's not. So the structure that we used is probably going to be the same if we use agents. So if you have these types of opportunities that are also small and will be aggregated, and then you have like an automation, we usually pilot those with like 1 or 2 or 3 test cases from different business units, because then we already see what are the decisions patterns, who needs to be involved to make those decisions, if the solution is even possible, let alone at scale. That's the first lever. And then the second level, once we rolled out the automation, is that we just, what I said, we had an opt-out function where the owner was informed about the potential changes in storage class or in even deletion of the volumes. So then the owner, the responsibility is shifted back to the owner of the resource. So the decision, like the risk decision or the compliance decision, still needs to be answered.
I understand, but something we tried, which has not worked so well, is we created an agent as well, and it created a pull request. So the engineer didn't need to do any coding, they just needed to review and accept. And that was thought to be a great solution, but the pull requests are now queuing up because, well, he knows it's $20 to a savings, and he's not going to spend time testing and looking, and it's like, I need to be focused on customer value, so we haven't managed to solve that problem. So instead of a queue of things he needs to develop, now we have a queue of things he needs to approve. Anyway, it's a bit of experience. But any kind of solution you have, any kind of idea about that? Like in terms of the problem you said about small value at large scale, when still the engineer has to intervene, be it to test, be it to approve, be it to do something or other?
To be honest with you, I don't have that answer, and it's going to be the same challenge that probably everyone is going to face who works in a highly regulated industry that needs to automate decisions, because there's always going to be various departments involved, mainly risk compliance, and then the product team itself. So you still have this matrix of decision makers, and that of course scales the complexity of the automation infinitely, because even if you get to approve at the business level, you will still need to get other approvals from other departments. So I would say it probably, I can't think of a solution right now that would scale well in this complex scenario of a highly regulated industry.
Yeah.
Sure.
Maybe just 2 comments. The very small ones needs to be fully automated.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think there is a way to fight it, okay? Now you can add more context to the pull request. Engineer can have a look and make a decision, but again, if it's $10, you will run into the same problem. So I think like that's like, to be fair. I also think that it's very important to create for every agent or application that you're doing to do this optimization, to give it very, very specific permissions. That's typically the secret, to take things through security. So if you can really focus on the relevant permission, it makes things much easier. And when we're not talking about taking down idle resources, but actually talking at configuration, the risk is also much lower to affect production environment. So if you can map, like, okay, where do I have things that are low risk? And I can create very specific write permissions for that task. And that's the only permission this agent or application is getting to do the optimization. It makes things much easier with security.
I'm terrible at throwing, by the way. That's okay.
We're really easy throw. So how much of this are fully automated in your software, and how much of this requires some in-depth consultancy or skills?
Yeah, all the detection is fully automated. The remediation with agents, which I just described, we have a service that comes with it to build the agents. Because we realize that not everyone has the ability to build agents, give them instructions, and trust them. So that's something that is come with services for implementation. So it's a one-time thing, basically.
So you sell your software, and then you sell some implementation services?
Exactly.
We have time for one final burning question. See, it didn't hurt. It's better than this one.
So I just have a question. Right now we're going through two phases. Anomaly detection, which we're trying to streamline, which is it's a great idea, but we're trying to hone in and figure out a process to regulate it. And I just wanted to know, is there any tips that you guys might have? We have the option to receive alerts to detect anomalies that spike by percentage and by dollar amount. I'm proposing currently to my bosses that I would like to do both, dollar amount and percentage, but we have thousands of projects and we have thousands of owner labels as well. I'm willing to put in the work to do all of that and put them in one by one, but I don't want to do all of that and then, we have a spike for a project that baselines at $1 every day of cost, and then there is a spike of $3. And then that's like what, a 33% spike. So it's all the way up there on the percentage side, but the dollar amount is so small. Whereas if there is a $300 per day project and it spikes up to like, I don't know, $600, that's a 50% spike, which is up there with that as well. Is there any tips that you can give me regarding that?
I have tons, but Thomas, you can start.
I'll take that. So we're one bank in 3 geos with 45 business units, over 700 squads, over 10,000 of microservices, over billions of resources. So that's the first question. Where do you draw the line? Yeah. That's probably what you said. You have thousands of projects. Where do you draw the line? So luckily we automated alerts at the squad level. And then the question becomes, do you go into every single alert, and how do you detect, how do you set the threshold? So for this, we use 2 things. One, we democratize the access. So that means that the owner is soon enough going to become annoyed by two tiny alerts and is going to change those thresholds themselves. And in the absence of someone participating from that squad or business unit or wherever you tie it, we correlate it back to budget. So we say, I would have to lie, but I think it's like 2% of monthly budget. If the alert is over that, this is where we draw the line, because then you take out the absolute versus variable component. If you already relate it to the budget itself, that's what we are using. Yeah.
Okay. So most of it is budget based, as you would say.
Say again?
So it would be budget based for the most part, and then those owners would have to I guess, edit their alerts on their own according to their own specific project?
So the default is budget. And then if that's not enough for usually the complaint that we get is that there are too many alerts. So then they have to just go to the platform and change the value.
Yeah. If I may add real quick, so customizability, Thomas mentioned that, like taking into consideration percentage and amount. It's really important. That's number one. Number two, don't rely only on billing data. You have to marry it with infrastructure data. And then to say, okay, this spike in S3, it was created because this bucket, because of write actions from this application. So when you marry the technical aspects, you can start understanding root cause. And the third piece, you need an agent that contextualizes it before you send it to engineering. That actually looks at all the data and say, okay, this is, I don't know, oh, it's fine because it was Thanksgiving and it's okay. Or no, something is weird here, it should go to engineer. There should be an agent that creates a paragraph after it ran its investigation. So at least from a solution point of view, you need these three components: customizability, root cause analysis with infrastructure data, and an agent that does the investigation when anomaly is created.
That just one thing that just came to my mind. You could also anchor it on unit economics, so that the absolute spike is explained by some business behavior. I was talking to a guy from DraftKings yesterday, and he said, well, on every NFL Sunday, they get spike alerts. Well, obviously, because that's when people use the platform the most. So in the terms of unit economics, to like cost increase relative to whatever revenues or bets or whatever they use, that probably wouldn't show up as a spike. So if you can anchor it on that, probably you would incorporate the business component into your alerting system. It probably also makes a big difference, but it puts a lot of stress on your unit economics, that they're available at the same near or real time that your cost data is.
Thomas, Alon, thank you very much. A big round of applause.
Hey everyone, producer Andrew here. Thanks for watching. Check out the rest of our channel for more FinOps content. Like, subscribe, and leave questions and comments for our speakers. We appreciate your support.